Hello, my dear students. So today I am going to teach you about the revolt of 1857, chapter number 10, and I am referring the book, The Trial, History and Civics. Okay, so written by Jayanti Sengupta. The credit goes to this book. So let us start with today's class. You might have heard many times about the revolt of 1857. So what all happened and what were the causes which were responsible for this great uprising of 1857. So you can see the theme of chapter number 6 is all about the great uprising of 1857, which is also known as the revolt of 1857 or the great revolt of 1857. So you know that 100 year is over, and then after the Battle of Plassey, which was fought in the year 1757, from 1757 to 1857, if you subtract it, almost it comes 100 years. Okay, so 100 years after the Battle of Plassey, the people of India, they became frustrated, and then they decided to revolt through different ways. Okay, so number of causes are there, so we will highlight, we'll discuss the important causes of the revolt of 1857 under the headings one by one. Now the first one is political cause, then the second one is economic cause, okay, then social and religious causes are there, and then the military causes are also there. So all these causes all together were responsible for the revolt of 1857. So what made the people to go against the mighty British rule in our country? Okay, so at that time company's rule was there. That means East India Company came as a trader, and then after 1757 they became the rulers of our country, and one after another they started bringing most of the territories of India under their direct control. Okay, so if you go through this first paragraph, you'll come to know that Indian historians, okay, the Indian historians refer this great rising as a great revolt 1857, whereas the British historians regard this revolt as a sepoy mutiny, just simply a mutiny started by the sepoys of India. Okay, that is Sipahi, we call it also. Okay, so altogether, due to all this reason, this sepoy mutiny or the great revolt 1857 is also known as the first war of Indian independence. Now the question arises over here, why is the revolt of 1857 also known as the first war of Indian independence? So the answer is very simple. For the first time in the history of India, people belonging to different sections, the farmers, the peasants, the workers, okay, the rulers, the nobles, and even the army, that means the military, that is the sepoy working under the British rule, they all fought against one common enemy, that was British. Okay, that was the English. That is why this is also known as the first war of Indian independence. For the first time, these people, the Indians, realized that though scattered into different forms, they realized that the longer the British rule continues in our country, that will bring havoc in our country. Suffering and miseries will be there in our life. That is why they decided to launch a movement in the form of the revolt, which came to be known as the revolt of 1857. Okay, now let us discuss one by one some of the important causes, like the political cause. So what all comes under political causes? Like three things I'll highlight. Number one is doctrine of lapse. Okay, number two is Nana Sahib was ill-treated. Okay, then Bahadur Shah was disrespected by the English. Okay, so all these three, though different, these are different ways or the different problems, but the common enemy was the English. Okay, that is why. So let us start with it. Doctrine of lapse. So you know that Lord Dalhousie was in hurry to annex the territories as soon as possible. That is why he introduced such a policy which could bring more and more territories under its control. So Let me tell you one more thing. Like British or the English followed four policies to bring the territories under their control. Number one, by conquest. You have seen Battle of Plassey, Battle of Buxar. Okay, many of the battles were fought through that. Territories were brought under their control. Second one was Lord Wellesley introduced subsidiary alliances. Okay, and the third one was introduced by Lord Dalhousie, that was doctrine of lapse, that I'm going to explain you now. And the fourth one was annexation on the pretext of misgovernment. Okay, so Awadh was annexed on the pretext of misgovernment. That fourth topic we'll discuss after going through all this. So first of all, what is mean by doctrine of lapse? Okay, doctrine of lapse was introduced by Lord Dalhousie. So according to this lapse, okay, according to this doctrine, if a ruler of a particular kingdom dies without leaving his own or the real successor, then the entire kingdom will pass into the hands of the English. Okay, the right of adoption was not at all guaranteed. That means accepted by the Britishers. That means his own son, the ruler's son, must be allowed to rule. Other than that, the kingdom will lapse. Lapse means pass into the hands of the Britishers. So in this way, through doctrine of lapse, the states of Satara, Nagpur, Jhansi, okay, all were annexed by applying doctrine of lapse, because when the ruler of Satara died, he did not have his successor. The same way with Nagpur also. In Jhansi, you might have gone through it, many of the movies also you might have seen, isn't it? When the ruler of Jhansi died, okay, his wife Rani Lakshmibai decided to rule, but that was not at all accepted by the Britishers. Okay, that is why she launched a movement against the Britishers that we have watched in many of the movies also. Okay, so doctrine of lapse brought fear in the minds of those rulers who had a successor of their own, because they were of the opinion that today I have a son, today my successor is there, but in future my successor may not have a successor. The one day or the other day my kingdom will also pass into the hands of the English. So that fear was also there among the rulers of those states who already had their successors. Okay, so as per the doctrine of lapse, if a ruler dies without leaving his own successor, okay, or natural heir, then his kingdom will pass into the hands of the English. Okay, so on this basis, by applying doctrine of lapse, Satara, Nagpur and Jhansi was annexed. Okay, annex means to bring those territories directly under your control. Okay, this was doctrine of lapse. So who introduced doctrine of lapse? Lord Dalhousie. Okay, the Governor General of India, Lord Dalhousie. Okay, the next one is Nana Sahib. Then who Nana Sahib was? Nana Sahib was the adopted son of Peshwa. You see here, adopted son. So as per doctrine of lapse, this adopted son definitely will not get those facilities. Right? That is why you can see here, Bajirao II, the pensioner of the British. Okay, when Nana Sahib's father, the Peshwa Bajirao II, died, okay, after that the pension should have been given to Nana Sahib, but that pension was denied to Nana Sahib. Why he was denied? Because he was not his own son or his real son. He was the adopted son. That is why the pension which was supposed to be given to Nana Sahib was completely denied. That is why Nana Sahib was completely hurt, and this had hurt the sentiments of a large number of people who highly respected Nana Sahib. Okay, so Peshwa, you might be wondering what is the meaning of Peshwa. You know that a grandson of Shivaji, during the tenure of grandson of Shivaji, Shahuji, he introduced a post called Peshwa. Peshwa means Prime Minister. Prime Minister post was started under Shahuji, the grandson of Shivaji, and from that time onward, that post was continued by this family. Nana Sahib and other predecessors were also there, and his successors continued to do so. So it is mentioned over here, no? Nana Sahib was the adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao II. Bajirao II was a Peshwa, okay? And after his death, the pension was denied to Nana Sahib, who was the adopted son of Bajirao II. Okay? So though it did not make any difference, but this created a hatred in the minds of Nana Sahib to overthrow the British rule from our country. So you know that Nana Sahib had inherited huge wealth from his ancestors, isn't it? Huge wealth from his predecessors. So he utilized those wealth in organizing the movement or the revolt against the Britishers. Okay, now the next one, the third one is Bahadur Shah Zafar. You know that Mughal rule was established in the year 1526. Okay, Babar was the founder of Mughal Empire and all. So Bahadur Shah Zafar was the last. Okay, Bahadur Shah Zafar was the last Mughal emperor. Okay, after the death of Aurangzeb in 1707, the chain of successors who followed, they came to be known as later Mughals, because they were very weak, they were not capable. Okay, they could not manage the vast empire which was managed earlier by the early Mughals. Okay, so though whatever it is, Bahadur Shah Zafar was the Mughal emperor just for namesake. Okay, so Mughal emperor lived in Delhi as a pensioner of the British. So he was getting a pension from the British rule. Okay, so now what happened that hurt the sentiments of Bahadur Shah Zafar? You can see here two things. Number one, Lord Dalhousie announced that Bahadur Shah Zafar's successors would not be allowed to stay in the historic Red Fort. You know, in Delhi, Red Fort is there. Whenever you get a chance, you go and visit Red Fort. That was a palace of the Mughals. Okay, announcement was there after the death, or we can say that the successors of Bahadur Shah Zafar would not be allowed to stay in this historic Red Fort. Number one, that means now they have to vacate it. Okay, the successors of Bahadur Shah Zafar, they had to leave the Red Fort and they have to move to the place near the Qutub Minar. That is the on the outskirt of Delhi. That means outside of Delhi, Qutub area, there they have to stay. Okay, number one. Number two, it was also announced that the successors of Bahadur Shah Zafar would not be allowed to use the title of the king or queen. That means the imperial title, that means could not be used. That means Lord Canning announced that the imperial title of a king or queen or a Badshah or the Mughal Badshah, the Mughal emperor, that title would not be used. That means will not be allowed to be used by the successors of Bahadur Shah Zafar. That is why Bahadur Shah Zafar was the last Mughal emperor, because he had a successor but they were all denied. Okay, they were not allowed to stay in the Red Fort, and they even were denied the titles of their father. Okay, that is why this two things, announcement by Lord Dalhousie and then Lord Canning, greatly hurt the religious, or we can say the not religious, sorry, Muslim sentiments a lot, who respected Bahadur Shah Zafar a lot. Okay, now next one, you see here we have discussed doctrine of lapse, then Nana Sahib, then Bahadur Shah was disrespected. Okay, now the fourth one is Awadh. You know that the Nawab of Awadh was very loyal to the Britishers. Okay, Nawab was very loyal to the English. They always helped. Most of the sepoys in the British army were from Awadh also. Okay, but Lord Dalhousie, you know, he was very cunning. He wanted to annex Awadh also, but he was stopped. He was asked not to annex Awadh because Awadh was very friendly and faithful to the English. But anyhow, he took out, that means he planned in such a way that it was proved that Awadh is not properly administered. Awadh is not properly administered by the Nawab. That is why, on the pretext of a maladministration or a misadministration, unable to look after the administration of Awadh, on that ground Awadh was annexed. Now the people of Awadh were very unhappy, because they were humiliated, no, because they always were the supporters of the English. They always helped the English in all possible ways. The Nawab of Awadh was also very honest and friendly towards them. But at the end, what was the fate of Awadh? Awadh was annexed on the pretext of misgovernment, by saying that Awadh is not properly administered by Nawab. Okay, so at the end, what happened? The Nawab of Awadh was exiled to Calcutta. See the reward being given to the Nawab of Awadh, who was very honest and faithful. Now he has to live in exile. So Nawab of Awadh was exiled to Calcutta. Okay, now the next one, many of the rulers were there, now they also had a sense of fear, that means an insecurity, because they had signed an agreement with the company. Now British did not pay respect to any of the treaties which they had signed with the Indians or the rulers of India, because whenever they wanted, wherever they wanted, they broke the treaties. Okay, whichever suited them, they broke the treaties and all. Treaties means agreement between the English and the rulers. So this created a sense of fear and insecurity among the rulers of the subordinate states. The rulers were still very unhappy, and they felt insecure that the treaties which they had signed for different reasons could be broken at any time, because English cannot be trusted. They can break the treaties any time. Okay, see the sentence, the axe could fall on them anywhere at any time. That means it was very sure. They also knew the intention of the English, that the axe could fall on them anywhere at any time. Okay, so these were the political causes of the revolt of 1857. So you can see here, that means the rulers of or the successors of Satara, Nagpur, Jhansi. The example is Jhansi. Rani Lakshmi was very much annoyed. Okay, then next one you can see here, Nana Sahib also was not happy. Okay, he started organizing the movement. Jhansi, Rani Lakshmibai also started organizing a movement against the Britishers. Bahadur Shah Zafar, the same way, he was also disrespected. So all these factors played an important role in fueling the revolt of 1857. Okay. Then now let us start with the next important cause, that is economic causes. Okay, economic. Now let me tell you, my dear, before the coming of Britishers in our country, Indians were very happy. Okay, they were contented. Okay, agricultural economy was there in our country. Okay, farmers, peasants, whoever were there, the handicrafts, they all were very happy. Okay, but with the coming of English in our country as a trader, the age-old traditional economy of our country was completely destroyed, and the Britishers followed the policy of exploitation. That means they tried every possible ways to exploit the Indian economy. So that is why different reform, that means revenue policies they introduced, like a land revenue system, zamindari system, isn't it? Or we can say the permanent settlement, many sort of that means land revenue system they introduced in our country. So the land revenue system introduced by the British caused great hardship and misery among the peasants. The peasants were very unhappy, and the life of the peasants became very difficult. They started to live a miserable life, a very difficult life. Now for example, under the zamindari system, okay, the peasants were oppressed by the zamindars. That means zamindar oppressed the peasants. Okay, and number two, the money lenders also exploited them. Money lenders means, suppose I need money, so I'll go to a person who will lend me a money. Okay, so zamindars oppressed the peasants, money lenders also exploited them. Suppose for example, when you ask money from the money lender, you have to mortgage your land or any sort of property to them. When you fail to pay the loan back to them, when you fail to return the loan to the money lender on time, what will happen? They were often flogged. They were beaten with sticks. Okay, they were beaten with sticks. When they failed to pay the loan taken from the money lenders, what type of treatment was meted to the peasants? They were beaten with sticks and all, flogged. Okay, they were tortured, and sometimes they were even jailed also. They were sent to the jail. Okay, so the impoverishment of that means the peasants becoming poorer and poorer. Who was responsible for the impoverishment of the peasantry? The Britishers' land revenue system. Okay, that means, let me explain you one more thing. What is the difference between a farmer and a peasant? Farmer and a peasant, two different things. Okay, farmer, they have a land of their own, they work on it. Okay, the peasants, they don't have the land of their own, but still they do farming on somebody else's land. Okay, so this is the only difference between the farmer and the peasant. Okay, now next one, landlords. Not only money lenders, zamindars exploited the peasants. Now the condition of landlords were also very, very pathetic. Suppose landlord means I am the owner of this land. Okay, I have the paper with me to prove that this land belongs to me. Okay, property deeds are there with me. Now if any of the landlords fail to produce a written deeds of ownership, their lands were confiscated, lands were seized. Okay, so many of the landlords also started suffering in the sense of insecurity, that that means thousands and thousands of jagirs means land, were all confiscated by Lord William Bentinck, Lord Dalhousie. Okay, how? When they were unable to produce written title deeds of ownership. Okay, suppose for example, if somebody comes and captures my property, and if I fail to prove that this property belongs to me on a paper, okay, then they definitely that will be confiscated by them forcefully, they will seize it. Okay, so same thing happened during that time also. Many of the landlords who had large areas of land, they had a sense of insecurity, because any moment, any time their lands could be confiscated if they fail to produce a written title deeds of ownership. Okay, fail to prove that you are the owner of that land that time. Okay, now when Awadh was annexed on the pretext of misgovernment, what happened? The states of zamindars and talukdars were confiscated by the British. The states of zamindars, large areas of land owned by the zamindars, that also were confiscated by the British. Talukdars, okay, were confiscated by the British. Many areas of land belonging to them, they all were confiscated by the British. Okay, and due to this, Britishers became the sworn enemy of the British rule. That means the people of Awadh, mostly the zamindars, okay, whose properties were seized, they became the sworn enemies of the British. They hated the British like anything. Okay, now the next one, the interest of the Indian economy were sacrificed for the interest of British trade. That means they did not show any interest for boosting of the Indian economy. They were mostly concerned with their own trade and industry. Okay, that is why you can see here traditional handicraft industries lost their position. Okay, now the government did not help in any way to protect them or support them. Nothing was done by the government to develop modern Indian industries. Indian artisans, handicrafts, craftspeople were completely ruined. Their life were completely ruined. The business was completely stopped. Okay, number one thing is that they could not face the tough competition with the Britishers, because they produced so much of goods and they flooded the Indian market, and they could not compete with the British made goods. Okay, so due to all these things, the large scale annexation by the English, okay, brought unemployment and economic disaster in the country. Okay, so for example, when Awadh was annexed, when a particular kingdom is annexed, what happens? Hundreds of court officials, they will become unemployed. Okay, suppose for example, I work in a big industry. If that industry is closed, not only the owner will suffer, no, the people working in that industry, they will also suffer. The families who are dependent on that earning person will also suffer. Okay, the same thing happened when the kingdom was annexed, or when the Awadh was annexed. Hundreds of court officials, they became jobless. Okay, they became completely jobless. Okay, their subordinates lost the means of livelihood. That means there was no means to support their livelihood. Poets, musicians, artisans, whoever dependent upon the royal patronage, means suppose you are working under me, I am your patron, I am giving you the salary, you are working under me, so now I am not there, so you all will lose your job. So once you lose your job, there will be a loss of livelihood also. Okay, so same thing happened over here when states were annexed. Example of Awadh only I gave you. The same thing happened with other kingdoms also. When they were annexed, hundreds and thousands of people are linked and are under the royal patronage of that kings. Okay, so they lost their job, they became unemployed. Okay, so this is all about the economic policies of the Britishers. The important policy was that they wanted to exploit the Indian economy. Okay, so next one is social and religious causes. Now you can see here social. In this case, to some extent, I feel that they tried to bring they tried to do something good for the society, but as you know that all of a sudden when you ask the people to change their mindset, it is not at all possible. Okay, now you can see here social reforms like when sati system was abolished, when female infanticide was stopped, when widow remarriage act was passed. Okay, when women education was introduced. Okay, so all these thing, okay, brought or caused deep resentment among the orthodox section of the society. The old believer in the society, they did not want this type of things to happen. Suppose sati system was prevalent in the society, people followed it from generation to generation. Now all of a sudden the sati pratha was completely banned. Okay, so people said no, how can they interfere in our social customs? Okay, though on one side it is good that they wanted to bring reformation within the society, but the orthodox people, okay, purani soch ke log kehte hain na, orthodox people, they resented to this type of changes taking place in the society. Like female infanticide, small female babies were killed early. Okay, once the once the women become a widow, they could not remarry again. So British tried to do some justice with this type of act to the people, but this was not at all digested by the orthodox section of the society. Okay, so what they interpreted, this social reformation was interpreted as a measures deliberately, or we can say it was a deliberate attempt by the British to destroy the sanctity of their religion and social custom. The orthodox people in society thought that they are deliberately, intentionally trying to destroy our customs, religion and social customs, which we have been following from very old times. Okay, so this is the one. Next one, you can see with the coming of English in our country, the Christian missionaries also came in our country, and their main motive was to convert the people to Christianity. Okay, so what did they do? They tried to ridicule the religious belief of the people. Okay, openly they criticized the Hindus and the Muslims religion. Okay, they started converting the people to a new faith, that is Christianity. Okay, so while doing this, the Christian missionaries act hurt the religious sentiments of the people of our country. Did you understand? So they were very much hurt. That means they had been following a different religion. Now they are coming up with new ideas to convert the people or lure the people to convert themselves to a new religion. So that had hurt the religious sentiments of the people of our country. Okay. Now the next one is that Western education. When Western education was introduced in our country, so okay, that also brought some sort of resentment among the religious people like the Pandits and the Maulvis, because earlier the Muslim students, they used to go to the Maulvis for getting education, and Pandits were the one who were teaching the giving knowledge to the students and all. Okay, now their position is in danger. Okay, they are going to lose their importance in the society with the coming of Western education in the country. Okay, so they thought that the traditional and the old values of our society is going to disappear with the coming of Western education in our country. Okay, now you can see here the office of the inspector of a school in Patna was referred to as the satanic daftar. Okay, Saitani daftar. You can see here Saitan ka daftar. That means just imagine, from there all the ideas, plans were implemented in order to introduce a Western education in our country. Okay, so they thought that our position in our country is going to lose the importance, because Western education will definitely attract the people to study Western knowledge, Western ideas. Okay, and when railways were introduced in our country, my dear, they had a fear that that is going to break their caste system. Okay, so the introduction of railways, the post and telegraphs aroused grave doubts and fear, especially among the simple villagers. Why are these being starting? Why are they starting these railways and all? Okay, so there was a belief that somebody asked why these railways. The simple man said, if you don't convert yourself to Christianity, they will throw us in front of the running train. So why these telegraph lines are erected? Somebody said to them, if you don't convert yourself to Christianity, they will hang you on the telegraph poles and all. So this type of rumor was spread among the people, and that brought fear in their minds of a simple villagers. Okay, they thought that they are going to lose their previous sanctity and their position in the society. Okay, so slowly and gradually with the introduction of railways, post and telegraph, okay, the fear started to grow much higher and higher, and then in this way the people of the society thought that intentionally the Britishers are trying to play with our religion also. Okay, so this is all. So these few topics are there that you can go through it also. Okay, now these two topics you can go through it on your own also. Okay, so now the next one is military cause. You know that the revolt 1857 started as a mutiny of the sepoys. It has been said, no? But if you look deeper into this, then you'll understand that not only the sepoys were the one to start, but the ground for the revolt was already prepared in the form of political, economic, and social and religious causes. Okay, so now you can see here, you know that the sepoys were always very loyal to the company's army. Okay, they were working for the company. Wherever revolt broke out, the Indian sepoys were sent. Okay, now the question arises over here is that what type of treatment was given to the sepoys, Indian sepoys? Very simple, my dear. The first important thing was that they were not given proper salaries. They were not given proper salaries as compared to the European counterpart. Okay, so let us go through it one by one. The sepoys had helped the British to establish the empire in India, that is for sure, but they were neither appreciated nor rewarded. Okay, they were neither appreciated nor rewarded. They never, whenever you do some good work, no, somebody will praise, oh sabas, bahut acha kaam kiya. Never, they did not appreciate their hard work, nor they were rewarded with any things, cash or any sort of material help. Okay, now you can see here, on the contrary, they were treated with great contempt by the British officers. They were working for the company. Okay, wherever the revolt broke out, they were sent, but in spite of giving their honest service, they were never rewarded, or they were never, so that means they were never at all praised by the English. But on the other side, or that means thus contrary, opposite to that, they were treated with a great contempt. Okay, now see the discrimination. There was a grave discrimination between the Indian sepoys and his British counterparts. Okay, a capable and a dedicated sepoy could not rise up to the post of, that means promotion. Let us talk about promotion. That means the Indian sepoys could hardly reach up to the post of Subedar. That much only. How much capable you are, how much dedicated you are, your post is up to Subedar only. You cannot cross that post of a Subedar. Okay, whereas all the high post and position in the army was reserved for the Europeans. So Indian sepoys were kept at the lower positions. Okay, now as compared to the European soldiers, they were paid very much less salaries. Okay, salaries were very low. Lodging and boarding facility for sepoys were also far inferior to the British soldiers. That means the lodging and boarding facility as compared to the British soldiers were far more inferior. Okay, not up to the match. They were given good facilities, whereas the Indian sepoys were not given proper lodging and boarding facilities. Okay, many of the senior British officers were old and incompetent men. They were old plus incompetent, who could not command the respect of the Indian soldiers. You can see here, this was also there. Okay, many of the senior British officers were old and incompetent men who could not command the respect of the Indian soldiers. That means command the respect. You have to respect me, but now I am old. Okay, so definitely you will not be following me. But still they were holding that important post in the British army. Okay, company's army. Okay, now In 1856, an act was passed that was known as General Service Enlistment Act. In 1856, an act was passed that was known as General Service Enlistment Act. So according to this act, a new recruits could be sent anywhere to serve. They could be sent overseas to fight also. Okay, so now as per the Hindus, as per the Hindu beliefs, they were not supposed to cross river Indus. Okay, because that is going to degrade their religion. They had a religious belief that they are not supposed to cross river Indus and go to other part to fight or to work for the British army. Okay, but here what is the act talking about? Once you are recruited in the army, you could be sent anywhere. You cannot say no. If required, you could be sent anywhere. So this has hurt the sentiments of the Hindus because they believe that overseas travel would lead to a loss of caste. So you are going to lose your caste if you travel overseas. Okay, the sepoys interpreted that the regulation as another attack on their caste and religion. They thought that this is done deliberately to attack our caste. Okay, now the next one, after the annexation of Awadh, Nawab's army was disbanded. Nawab also had an army, no? So the soldiers lost their means of livelihood and their bitterness against the British increased. I am working for the Nawab of Awadh. Now the now Awadh is annexed. I became unemployed. I am now jobless, isn't it? So now definitely there will be a bitterness in me for the British, and that was increasing day by day. Okay, and the last point is Indian soldiers greatly outnumber the British soldiers. Okay, as compared to the British soldiers, Indians were more. Because sepoys were more. Okay, whereas because Europeans, they were not in the lower position of the company's army. They were holding a high position, high ranks in the army. So they were more in number. So in 1856, the number of sepoys in the British army was more than 5 times that the British soldiers. That means more than 5 times. If one European is there, then 5 Indian sepoys were there. So this emboldened the sepoys to take up arms against the foreign masters. They thought now this is the right time to go against the foreign masters. Okay, so now the background is ready. Now just we need a spark to start the Great Revolt 1857, and that was soon seen when they introduced the Enfield rifle. Okay, so in 1857 the country was sitting with discontent. You all know people were unhappy. Okay, so all that was needed was a spark to trigger off an explosion. Just a spark was required to trigger off the explosion. So what happened? They introduced, the issue came up as a spark when they introduced a grease cartridge in the army. Okay, so a new Enfield rifle was introduced. Okay, and the cartridge had a grease paper cover. The cartridge, that is bullet, had a grease paper cover, and which had to be bitten off. It has to be bitten off with a teeth before being loading to the rifle. Okay, cartridge is there, you have to bite it off with the wrapper, you have to remove it and then load it in the Enfield rifle. And that time rumor started to spread everywhere that the grease cartridge, okay, the cartridge in which the grease was used, the grease was made of a fat of a cow and a pig. So definitely the Hindus will also not use it, the Muslims will also not use this, because cow is holy for the Hindus, okay, and pig is unclean for the Muslims. So definitely they refused, and the rumor spread everywhere, and they decided, no, I am not going to use it. Okay, and this rumor spread like a wildfire, like in a jungle. No, if a small spark of fire is there, it will spread and it will burn the entire jungle. The same thing happened over here. So now, who was the first one to refuse to use the grease cartridge? So it was Mangal Pandey. Okay, so Mangal Pandey was from Barakpur, sepoy at Barakpur. On 29th March 1857, he was the first to refuse to use a grease cartridge. He said, no, I am a Brahmin, right? So I am not going to use this grease cartridge. Okay, so what did he do? He refused to use the grease cartridge and attacked his senior officers. So definitely if somebody is going to play with your religion, then definitely you are going to get annoyed. So he attacked his senior officers. So for that, what happened? He was hanged to death. He was hanged to death in the eyes of his fellow sepoys, his friends working with Mangal Pandey. Now they were very much annoyed. Okay, so now they started to revolt. So now they decided, that means it is mentioned over here, in the eyes of his fellow sepoys, Mangal Pandey was not a rebel but a martyr. So definitely he was hanged, but in the eyes of his friends, the fellow soldiers, he was not a rebel, he was a martyr. Okay, so on 9th of May 1857, okay, the soldiers in Meerut, 85 soldiers in Meerut refused to use the new rifle and were sentenced to 10 years. So they were sentenced for how many years? 10 years. So on 9th of May, 85 soldiers in Meerut refused to use the new rifle and were punished for, they were sentenced for how many years? 10 years. They were publicly striped, their uniforms were taken off from them. Okay, and put in fetters in the presence of an entire brigade and thrown into jail. So their stripe, the uniform was taken away from them and they were thrown into the prison. Okay, you can see this picture. This is the man Mangal Pandey. Okay, so now next what happens? Now the movement will start. So this enraged the humiliating treatment of their comrades, friends. The sepoys of Meerut army rose in revolt the following day. The sepoys stormed into the jail and freed their comrades. Those who were inside the jail, they were freed by other friends who also felt that no, this is injustice being done to our fellows. Okay, so they stormed into the jail, freed their comrades, shot the European officers, set their bungalows on fire, cut the telegraph lines to Delhi. Okay, so now movement started. So next morning these Meerut soldiers marched to Delhi, where they were joined by the local sepoys. They killed the European officers and captured the city. On 11th of May 1857, Bahadur Shah Zafar was persuaded to accept the leadership. They requested, Bahadur Shah Zafar was requested, please take up the leadership of the revolt. Please, you be the leader of our revolt. So when he said yes, then he was proclaimed the Emperor of Hindustan. Once again, he was proclaimed as the Emperor of Hindustan. So there was happiness all around. There was jubilation all around. Okay, that means restoration of Mughal Empire once again brought a lot of happiness and jubilation among the people. Okay, and this news quickly spread that the company Raj had come to an end. Everywhere there was a spread of news that the Mughal rule is now back and the company's rule had come to an end. Okay, the Sepoy revolt had been transformed into a war of independence. Okay, so inspired by the capture of Delhi, when Delhi was captured and the Mughal rule was established once again, rebellions broke out over the wide area. Other people also now thought this is the right time to start a movement against the Britishers. So same thing happened. So northwestern provinces, central India, western Bihar, everywhere the movement spread like a wildfire. Though this movement was short-lived because once again British became successful in capturing Delhi. Okay, because British reinforcement arrived from Punjab and Delhi was recovered in September 1857. So within this time, more and more forces came from Punjab and Delhi was once again back to the English. Okay, so thousands of innocent people were massacred and hundreds were hanged without trial. They were very much furious. They became atrocious and innocent people were killed, innocent people were hanged also. Okay, what happened to Bahadur Shah Zafar? Bahadur Shah Zafar was taken prisoner. Okay, he was tried and he was sent to Rangoon, where he died in 1858. Okay, his two sons, Bahadur Shah Zafar's two sons, okay, and one grandson, what were done? Were shot down and their bodies displayed on the streets. They were killed. Two of his sons and one of the grandson was shot and their bodies were hanged on the streets. And their bodies were displayed on the street. The once the great dynasty of Mughal finally came to an inglorious end. The Mughal rule finally came to an end. Okay, nobody thought that Mughal rule is going to end this way. Bahadur Shah Zafar was exiled to Rangoon. Rangoon is the capital of Burma. Now it is known as Myanmar. Okay, there he died in 1858. Okay, now Jhansi. Okay, from here we'll start. Kanpur, centers and leaders of the revolt. Okay, so where, how, and who led the movement? So in Kanpur, the movement was led by Nana Sahib. So now you know Nana Sahib was adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao. So what did he do? He captured Kanpur and proclaimed himself as the Peshwa. Kanpur was captured and he declared himself as the Peshwa. Okay, but unfortunately his victory was also short-lived. Okay, more and more reinforcement arrived and Kanpur was recaptured. Okay, rebels were punished severely. Whoever were revolting against the Britishers, they were punished severely. So in order to save the life, Nana Sahib escaped. Okay, his brilliant commander Tantia Tope continued the struggle but was later arrested and he was also hanged. Okay, so in Kanpur the movement was led by Nana Sahib. Okay, now let us talk about Lucknow. What happened in Lucknow? So in Lucknow, Hazrat Mahal. Okay, the revolt was led by Hazrat Mahal. Okay, and the British forces were defeated and besieged in the Lucknow residency for several months. Okay, so this is now next one. All the rebels who were captured were hanged. Lucknow was captured by the British, rebels were hanged and Queen escaped to Nepal. Hazrat Mahal escaped to Nepal. Okay. Now Jhansi. What about Jhansi? Who was the leader of the revolt in Jhansi? So the bravest and the best of military leader of the rebels, the 22-year-old Rani Lakshmi Bai. Okay, she fought gallantly against the British forces, but Jhansi was captured. She fought bravely, but Jhansi was captured. Rani Lakshmi Bai escaped, mobilized her forces, and with the help of Tantia Tope, captured Gwalior and drove out Scindia, a loyal ally of British. You know, that time also many of the Indian rulers, they were very, very loyal to the English. They supported. They did not take part in the revolt, but they were supporting the British. Okay. Fierce fighting followed. Rani dressed like a soldier. You can see here. It is a description about Rani. Rani dressed like a soldier, using her sword with both hands and holding the reins of her horse in her mouth, fought like a tigress. The brave Rani died fighting to the very end. She died fighting. Okay. She symbolized courage and bravery and the spirit of freedom. Rani Lakshmi Bai became the most enduring symbol and the greatest inspirational force for future generation of freedom fighters. Okay, so by July 1858, 14 months after the outbreak of Meerut, peace was declared. 14 months. How many months? 14 months after the outbreak of Meerut, peace was declared. Revolt had been crushed. British Empire had survived. That means revolt was completely a failure. That means Britishers became successful in suppressing the revolt of 1857. Okay, now what next? What next? What was the result of the revolt? What was the result of the revolt? You can see here, revolt brought a drastic administrative changes. Okay, so you can see here, the Great Uprising of 1857 was an important landmark in the history of modern India. So what happened? Number one, the rule of East India came to an end. That means East India Company's rule came to an end and India now passed into the hands of the crown. Okay, so India now came under the direct rule of British Parliament. Earlier, company was our ruler. Company was ruling India. Now company's rule came to an end and India now came under the direct rule of British Parliament and the Queen of England. Now Queen is our boss. Queen will rule India. So directly Queen cannot do all this work from England. So he introduced a post called Secretary of State of India. Okay, the one of the cabinet minister from the British Parliament, and post of a governor was changed into a viceroy. Okay, so the last governor general, Lord Canning, was the last governor general. Now he became the first viceroy of our country. The designation now is changed. Okay, so now you know that the Queen was very much sure that if we want to rule India for a longer period, we have to please them. So he came up with the Queen proclamation, promises. Okay, he issued a proclamation in 1858 that whichever treaties were signed with the rulers will be respected. Okay, we are not going to interfere in the social and religious life of the people. Okay, educated Indians will be getting the jobs. No more annexation of territories. Doctrine of lapse was completely abolished. Okay, doctrine of lapse now is completely abolished. Okay, educated Indians will get jobs as per their degree. If they want to work for the British administration, they have to pass the civil service examination. Okay, and next one, generally a pardon will be granted to everyone whoever were involved with the revolt. Only those people will be punished whoever were found killing of British officers. They will be punished. Rest all were given pardon. They were given pardon. They maafi de diya sabko. Okay, so British government would not interfere in social and religious customs of the people. Okay, and then army was reorganized and strengthened. As you know that the weak point of the British sepoy was that Indian sepoys were more. That is why they got an opportunity to turn their guns against the English. That is why they now decided to reorganize the army. Okay, all the important military artillery were placed under the European soldiers only. Okay, so all these things. Okay, and okay, so this is all about the Queen Proclamation. So only one of the important thing is that rule of East India Company came to an end. Now India went directly under the hands of the British Queen, Secretary of State of India, and just below Secretary of State of India, Viceroy will be the one looking after the administration of India as a whole. So whatever were promised through Queen Proclamation, not a single thing was fulfilled, my dear. Okay, so this is all about the revolt to 1857. Okay, now you can see this picture, you go and through it. So this one, earlier this is the way how the country was administered. Now this one you can see here, 1858 to 1947, British government, Secretary of State of India, one of the cabinet minister from Britain, and the Viceroy. So who was the first Viceroy of our country? The Lord Canning. Lord Canning was the first Viceroy of our country. Okay, or we can say who was the last Governor General and the first Viceroy of India? The answer is Lord Canning. Okay, now you can see here this part only. Of the estimated 1,50,000 people killed in the revolt, 1 lakh were civilians, my dear. See, civilians, 1 lakh civilians lost their life. Okay, 1 lakh civilians lost their life. Do you understand? So this is the nature of the revolt, what actually happened in the revolt of 1857. So my dear students, hope you all have understood the entire chapter in one video. So you need to have a patience to go through this video in detail. Okay, if you wish to go through this in detail, please go through it. Take your time, one after another topic wise. I'm going to make a chapters of this video, so whichever chapters in the description you can watch it. Okay, just for example, economic causes. So if you click the economic causes, only that part only will be seen in the video. Suppose you have already gone through all this, only you want to understand military causes, then click on the military chapter. Just below you will get the chapters in the description. Military causes, you click it over there. So the video will start from where I have explained you the military causes of the revolt. Okay children, so hope you all will definitely go through this video, and hope you all have reached up to this also after going through all this. So in spite of this, if you have any doubts and queries, you can just comment it, and hopefully you will comment in the comment box after watching this video also. Okay, so in the next video I'll be teaching you the next chapter, that is let me show you. After the revolt of 1857, I'm going to teach you the rise of Indian nationalism. So the next video will be on chapter number 12, rise of Indian nationalism, the trial, the history. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Take care, stay safe, bye bye.